Welcome back to Tech Visa. This is episode number 20. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel for all the latest in Australian immigration news. We got some exciting updates for the audience today. You just got back from the Immigration Law Conference in Melbourne last week. Really excited to hear your findings, your takeaways from that. You mentioned some great key takeaways around exploitation for temporary visa holders, multi-year planning levels, updates around the skills and demand visas. So we've obviously touched on that previously, but you do have some more information around that, which really excited to hear more about too. The Talent and Innovation Program, updates around student visa holders, graduate visas, genuine student test, which we have touched on briefly as well in the past, and then increase to English language requirement. So I thought, let's kick things off with the updates around the exploitation on temporary visa holders.
Yeah, like you say, there's an annual immigration law conference hosted by the Law Council of Australia in conjunction with the Department of Home Affairs. And this year, Minister Giles for Immigration and a couple of key members of his team came to the conference, which was really exciting. It's always really good to hear from the department directly about all of the policy changes or things that they've been wanting to kind of bring forward. So this whole exploitation of temporary workforce started, I think, in 2015, where there was a major player in the temporary program that kind of was not doing the right thing. Then there was a government review in 2019, and there was recommendations that came off the back of that. So basically, it's very dear to the department. The department is saying, look, we want to build visa programs that are not permanently temporary, yet help Australian businesses meet skill shortages, as well as offer temporary residents an option to work and contribute to Australia as an economy. So basically what the department is saying now that they have introduced new legislation that's going to come into effect, so that was legislated last month, to come into effect on the 1st of July this year, to actually introduce 3 criminal offences that could be utilized by the government for any repeat offenders or business sponsors knowing it's wrong but keep doing the wrong thing. That obviously will send a vital message to the sponsoring community, and what the department is also saying that repeated sponsoring offenders or businesses mainly will be listed on a prohibited sponsor list. So you're basically barred from sponsorship, but also barred from hiring temporary visa holders in Australia. So that could include your working holiday, your student visa, your post-study work visa cohort. So that's pretty intense for any businesses to experience.
And would you recommend visa holders as well jumping onto that prohibited list before applying for jobs, just to make sure that they're not applying for a position with a company that is actually prohibited from sponsoring?
That's right. So that's what the department was saying. The department is that they're going to publicly list and shame and obviously make visa holders or applicants in Australia aware or from overseas that there is a list that you can refer to for people that are not doing the right thing. So that's big. The offences used to be just financial, so there's a big fine or a barring, but now they're kind of stepping it up at the department. I mean, it's not something we work with at TechVisa or our sponsors, really know the program and do the right thing, but obviously there are still players out there that obviously don't. It all works together with Fair Work. So Fair Work is Australia and the department's sort of compliance officers work hand in hand if there are breaches of that.
And right now, the immigration planning levels, they set on financial years. So you did touch on something briefly around multi-year planning levels. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more about that and your findings and takeaways?
Sure. Definitely. Those that have followed us or have watched some of our other videos, we know, like last year when we were about this time, we were like, look, this financial year is coming to an end. General skill migration was really good. We had lots of places, let's hope next year will be the same. Rolls around 1st of July 2023, we only get a third of the allotted places towards the general skill pathway. So a lot of people are holding out to potentially have an option to gain permanent residence independently, wasn't able to. The Victorian state government was there at the conference and they presented. They have about over 3,300 places for the 190 and the 491.
Okay.
But the amount of expression of interest or the register of interest on this, it's, the chance of being invited is like less than 1%. So what the government is saying is obviously they understand it's difficult for state governments, difficult for advisors like us, and difficult for migrants to kind of know what that looks like. So they're saying they want to move to multi-year planning. I mean, it's in the very early stages. The department's trying to, because the government justification is that they consult with the Department of Employment, Education, and pull on certain levels to be able to make sure the migration program works for the economy each and every year. But it's really welcomed because I think it definitely offers more stability to those that wanting to obtain permanent residency, which is the ultimate outcome for many.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think from our side as well, it's so much easier to advise moving forward instead of kind of waiting for that financial year to finish or the next financial year to start and then go, oh, actually they're pulling back on general skill migration. They're actually focusing on, the partner visas or focusing on employer sponsored. At least we'll know far ahead and we can advise our clients and visa holders as well.
This year it's still going to be BAU, so around the May budget, we should hear some planning levels of what that will look like starting the financial year 2024, which is the 1st of July. And hopefully with each state and territory, with the allotted numbers, they will try to announce that earlier, because last year that didn't happen to almost August, which meant a whole month of people not knowing what's happened. So that's what the government's aiming to do better.
Information around the skills and demand visa. I've done an entire video on this visa, but there's obviously a lot of questions still. Not that you have all the answers, but we do have some updates surrounding the skills and demand visa. So from what we know now, the department are going to implement this by the end of 2024. So it's creeping up on us slowly now. What information do you have to share with us? Any updates surrounding the skills and demand visa?
So obviously the department was like, look, it's still in the making, but we want to give you a little bit more. So I want to use the word potentially. It would potentially replace the existing TSS 482 visa program to become the next flagship program for employers to use in Australia. They haven't thought of any numbers or acronyms yet to what that means, but they're keeping the skills in demand as the thing to go. And then there's going to be potentially tiers or pathways, however we want to call it. There's going to be 3 different categories. So the top one is called a specialist skill pathway. And the government saying, well, we recognize that the workforce or jobs in 2024 is very different to when we first created the ANSCO descriptor, and it's going to be very much employer driven. So the employers will have to say, this is the role we're putting forward, here's a PD. The salary requirement is higher than the current TISMIT, which is at 135,000 base to nominate, but then there's no longer an occupation list that's binding a business and a skilled migrant, basically. And then the next one stepping down will be core skills pathway. So the department saying, well, this one still needs to have some more parameters, so there will be an occupation list. There could be some changes to the current TISMIT. They are thinking to rename that. So the TISMIT stands for the temporary income threshold for anyone that needs to be nominated. Right now is at 70,000, which increased from 53,900 not long ago. So that could be rethought about. So that might change as well, the name and the amount. And then the last one is called essential skills. So the Australian government also recognises that in regional Australia or smaller sort of cities, there's a lot of demand for trade occupations, which is the last stream, the essential skills. So it includes all of your trade occupations. I assume there still would be, some parameters in terms of salary and maybe a potential list, but that's what the government's saying. So it's specialist, core, and then essential trade skills.
So we're hoping to see that introduced by the end of this year and then open to applications at the start of next year?
Fingers crossed.
The talent and innovation program. So potentially replacing our current global talent program. Do you have any updates around this?
So the department's saying, look, we definitely want to embrace talent and innovative ideas. We want to make Australia an attractive place to do business. They did give us some statistics to saying that the global talent visa had 5,000 places allotted for this financial year. We're towards the end of that financial year ending in June. And I think they've so far only exhausted about 3,000 places. So that could potentially be, there'll be a bit of a push towards the end of the financial year, or they might not use it all and just allocate to other subclasses within the program, because the department's still kind of trying to draw upon the experience of the global talent and sort of recreate something that covers both talent and innovation to be able to allow the people with the right skill sets to come to Australia.
So obviously speculation, but do you think they'll fill those 2,000 places that are left in the global talent program?
I mean, that's the recommendation of the government when they have allotted places, but if it normally means if you fill one particular area in terms of that planning level, then you get roughly the same amount for the next financial year. But we're not sure what would happen with that global talent program as it stands, so I can't say.
Also, some updates around the student visas and grad visas.
Yeah, we need migrants. We need migrants at different levels. Students, visa holder, or exporting education. It's still a big thing for our economy. But in terms of what that means is that the department is very cautious now of student visa cohort. So the department is saying there's going to be more compliance or further scrutiny of people applying for multiple student visas. So holder of a student visa applying for a further student visa that we touched upon previously last year about the bit of a loophole of course swapping. So coming in at a bachelor degree level, then very quickly move to a diploma or lower skill level. maybe to save on tuition fees, but also,
Yeah.
to kind of extend visas and whatnot. So the department's saying they're going to introduce more sort of stricter requirements that applicants must satisfy at the time of lodging the application before it's decided.
Are you alluding to the genuine student requirement?
Yes. The genuine. I think first they were thinking they're going to call it the genuine student test, but now it's called the genuine student requirement, which is actually going to come into effect from the 23rd of this month. So that's literally around the corner. Department basically saying, well, it's going to be in a format within the application form of the 500. So there's going to be questions built into the online form to talk about sort of planning why, the rationality of the course selection, financial capacity of the applicant, economic and political situation of home country.
Which is a lot more black and white now as well, right? Because now it's actually in the application itself.
That's right. The onus will be on the applicants to prove that they meet the requirements to be granted the visa. And the department is also talking about potentially increasing the English requirement for the student visa. There's a couple of streams in the student visa. It's basically all going up by about 0.5 of a point for each of the streams. The department has said student visa holders with better capacity or better English comprehension perform better and there's better outcomes.
Anything else to finish off?
The last thing we'll touch on is the graduate work or post-study work visa, which is the one that if you study in Australia for a degree or even a diploma, and then you can get. There used to be an overseas one where you've done a qualifying engineering degree from overseas universities. It's commonly known as the 476 visa. People might hold it or have seen it. There's now being a bit of cap that's applied since late last year, so December 22nd for the offshore program. So it looks like that's potentially in the remaking as well, what that looked like. They're also potentially wanting to increase the English requirement for the post-study work visa in Australia, which is the 485 program. Right now it's an IELTS of 6 in each band, and that's going to go up to 6.5. There's also talks about reducing the applicant's age for the 485 from the current age 50 down to 35. Those are not yet confirmed changes, but they are what the department has been talking about.
Thanks again for your time.
No worries.
If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and get in touch if you have any questions.